The breaking point. Commander Sarah Chen had not slept in 67 hours. Her eyes burned as she watched the tactical display on the bridge of the HSS Perseverance. Red hostile markers swarmed across the holographic map like angry hornets. The Krell invasion force had punched through the outer defenses 3 days ago and now threatened 2 Council border worlds with a combined population of 8 million souls. Sarah's fleet of 43 human warships formed the backbone of the defense. Alongside them were 120 Council vessels from 6 different species. But everyone in the combat zone knew the truth. Without human ships and human tactics, those 2 worlds would already be burning. The Krell were a nightmare species. They did not negotiate or retreat. They simply consumed everything in their path. Their ships were biological nightmares, grown rather than built, and they attacked in swarms that overwhelmed conventional defenses through sheer numbers. But humanity had learned to fight them. Sarah had personally developed the rotating shield doctrine that kept Krell acid attacks from penetrating human hulls. Her tactical innovations had been shared freely with the Council fleet. Now those innovations were saving millions of lives. Lieutenant Marcus Torres, her tactical officer, called out from his station. Commander, Krell Wave 7 is forming up. Estimated 2,000 vessels. They are targeting the civilian evacuation routes from Theros Prime. Sarah felt ice in her veins but kept her voice steady. All human ships, Formation Delta 9. We put ourselves between those civilians and the swarm. Council vessels provide covering fire and protect our flanks. The acknowledgements came quickly. Human captains trusted her completely. She had never lost a ship under her command and she did not intend to start today. The Perseverance shuddered as her engines pushed to maximum thrust. Around her, 42 other human warships moved as one, sliding into position with precision that made Council commanders shake their heads in wonder. The Krell wave hit like a tsunami. Thousands of living ships, each one dripping with acid and screaming across all frequencies, crashed against the human defensive line. Sarah's shields held. Her weapons tore through Krell vessels with ruthless efficiency. She gave orders in a calm voice even as explosions lit up the darkness around her ship. Redirect power from secondary systems to forward shields. Target their cluster formations. Do not let them get past us. Those evacuation ships need another 20 minutes. 20 minutes. It felt like 20 hours. Sarah's crew worked until their hands shook and sweat poured down their faces. Engineering teams rerouted power systems on the fly. Weapons officers fired until their targeting computers overheated. Medical teams prepared for casualties that, by some miracle, remained light. The human fleet held the line. Not a single Krell ship reached the evacuation routes. When the final civilian transport jumped to safety, Sarah allowed herself one deep breath of relief. Status report, she ordered. Torres checked his displays. All human ships operational. Moderate damage across the fleet but no critical systems lost. Council ships took heavier losses. They are reporting 17 vessels destroyed and 31 heavily damaged. Sarah felt the familiar weight of command. Council ships and crews had died while human technology and tactics kept her own people alive. It was not fair, but it was reality. Humanity had simply become better at space warfare than any other species. The battle continued for another 48 hours. Wave after wave of Krell ships threw themselves at the defenses. Sarah's fleet held firm. She rotated ships in and out of the front line, keeping her crews from complete exhaustion. She shared her tactical data with every Council vessel, trying to keep their casualties down. When the Krell finally withdrew, defeated and depleted, Sarah's fleet had destroyed more than 15,000 enemy vessels. The 2 Council worlds were safe. 8 million lives had been saved. Sarah stood on her bridge and felt the exhaustion finally crash over her. "We did it," she said quietly. Her crew managed tired cheers. Then Lieutenant Torres looked up from his communication console. His face had gone pale. "Commander, you need to see this. It is an encrypted message from Earth High Command. Priority Alpha." Sarah's instincts screamed warning. Priority Alpha meant crisis-level communication. She moved to her private ready room and activated the secure channel. The face that appeared on her screen was Prime Minister Jackson Webb, the elected leader of all human governments. "Commander Chin," Webb said without preamble. "While you were defending Council worlds, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. They passed Resolution 7743 by unanimous vote." Sarah felt cold dread building in her stomach. "What does the resolution say, sir?" "All human mining operations in the Outer Rim sector have been nationalized. 15 human colonies have been stripped of their mineral rights. Council enforcement fleets are already moving in to take control of the facilities. They are calling it resource reallocation for the greater good. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. My people just spent 3 days bleeding to protect Council worlds. And while we fought, they voted to steal from us. The timing was not coincidental, Webb said, his voice hard. They waited until your fleet was fully engaged. They knew you could not respond or defend our colonies. This was calculated theft, Commander. How many humans are affected? Sarah asked. Approximately 300,000 colonists across the 15 mining worlds. They are not being forcibly removed, but their livelihoods have been taken. The mines they built, the facilities they created, all of it now belongs to the Council. Sarah felt rage building inside her, white-hot and consuming. What are our orders, sir? Return to Earth immediately. Do not stop at any Council stations. Do not accept any Council communications. We are convening an emergency session of the Human Congress. Everything is about to change. The transmission ended. Sarah sat in her ready room for a long moment, processing what she had just learned. Then she stood and returned to the bridge. Attention all human vessels, she broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. This is Commander Chin. We are returning to Earth effective immediately. Plot direct courses. Maximum speed. We will not be stopping at Council Station Meridian for repairs or resupply. Her captains knew better than to question orders, but she could hear the confusion in their acknowledgement signals. The Council Station Meridian was only 2 days away. Earth was 2 weeks at their damaged ship's current speed. Sarah did not explain. She simply gave the order to jump and watched as her fleet vanished from Council space. 12 days later, Sarah stood in the Human Congress chamber in New Geneva. The vast circular room was filled with representatives from every nation on Earth and delegates from the 67 colony worlds humanity had established across space. The mood was explosive. General Thomas Blackwood, commander of all human defense forces, pounded his fist on the speaker's podium. We have the ships. We have the weapons. We can take back what was stolen and burn every Council world that supported this theft. My fleet is ready to launch within 48 hours. The chamber erupted in angry agreement. Sarah understood the sentiment. She felt it herself. But she had spent enough time in Council space to know that war would cost humanity millions of lives, regardless of who won. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood and waited for silence. She was humanity's former representative to the Council, now recalled to Earth. Her voice was tired but firm. War is what they expect. They have already positioned their fleets to defend against human retaliation. They are prepared for us to attack. But there is another option. The chamber quieted. Everyone wanted to hear alternatives to a war that would span the galaxy. Dr. James Morrison, head of the Economic Council, stood next. For 30 years, humanity has been the engine of Council prosperity. We manufacture 55% of all industrial goods in Council space. Our agricultural methods feed 29 Council worlds. Our medical technology has extended the lifespan of every Council species by an average of 20 years. Our shipping companies move 60% of all interstellar cargo. He paused and looked around the chamber. What happens if we simply stop? What happens if we take our innovations, our technology, our workers and our ships and we leave? Not in anger, not in war. We simply walk away. Sarah felt understanding dawn. It was elegant in its simplicity. Admiral Rebecca Foster, Sarah's superior officer, stood and added her support. The Council sees us as useful servants. Clever animals who build things for them. They do not realize how dependent they have become on human contributions. If we leave, their entire civilization will feel the impact within months. Prime Minister Webb took the floor. He had been listening to the debate for hours. Now he made his position clear. I propose Operation Silent Departure. We withdraw every human presence from Council space. Every diplomat, every merchant, every colonist, every ship. We delete all navigation data that shows how to reach human territory. We close our borders completely. And we do it all without firing a single shot. We simply disappear from their lives. The debate raged for another 6 hours. Hawks argued for military strikes. Doves argued for negotiation and diplomacy. But slowly, a consensus formed around Webb's proposal. The vote was called. The result was overwhelming. 847 in favor of Operation Silent Departure. 124 against. 43 abstentions. Prime Minister Webb made it official. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. All human assets will be removed from Council space within 90 days. Our borders will be closed. Ambassador Rodriguez, you will deliver our final message to the Council. Sarah left the chamber feeling a strange mix of emotions. Pride that humanity was standing up for itself. Sadness that 30 years of cooperation was ending. And underneath it all, cold satisfaction that the Council would finally learn what they had taken for granted. Over the next 90 days, humanity executed the most coordinated withdrawal in galactic history. Every human merchant vessel received coded orders and immediately left Council ports. Trade routes that had operated for decades went silent overnight. Human embassies across Council space began systematic shutdowns. Diplomats destroyed sensitive documents and wiped computer systems. Within 2 weeks, 83 human diplomatic compounds stood empty. The civilian extraction was the largest operation. Every human living on Council worlds received evacuation orders. Families packed what they could carry. Transport ships arrived in endless streams. Some Council species tried to convince humans to stay, offering money and promises. But every human returned home. Not one remained behind. Sarah personally oversaw the military withdrawal. Every human defense platform was either moved or destroyed. Weapons systems were removed. Technology was wiped. Nothing was left that the Council could use or study. The most critical step was the navigation data deletion. Humans erased every star chart and every route map that showed how to reach human space from Council territory. The paths that had allowed trade and communication for 30 years simply vanished from Council databases. Finally, on day 89, Ambassador Rodriguez delivered humanity's last message to the Council. It was broadcast simultaneously to every Council world. Her face appeared on billions of screens, her expression cold and formal. This is Ambassador Elena Rodriguez representing humanity. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. All diplomatic relations are severed. All trade agreements are void. All military cooperation has ended. We are closing our borders. Do not attempt to contact us. Do not attempt to enter human space. Any Council ship that approaches our territory will be turned back by force. You took our trust and our friendship and you repaid us with theft and betrayal. This is our final message. We are done with you. Goodbye. The transmission ended. Silence fell across Council space. On Earth, Sarah Chin stood in the new Orbital Defense Command Center and watched as the last human ship crossed back into human territory. The borders closed behind it. Automated defense platforms activated along the entire perimeter of human space. The walls were up. We are alone now, said Admiral Foster, standing beside her. No, Sarah replied quietly. We are free. And they are about to learn what they have lost. In the darkness of space, humanity's message echoed in the silence. The Council had betrayed them. Now humanity had spoken its last words. The silence had begun, and it would teach a lesson the Council would never forget. The collapse. Supreme Chancellor Vorith stood in the Grand Council chamber and felt something he had rarely experienced in his 200 years of life: uncertainty. The ornate chamber, built to showcase the power and majesty of the Galactic Council, now felt hollow. Empty. The human ambassador's final message had ended 3 weeks ago, and the silence that followed was deafening. Vorith was a Draxian, a species known for their strategic minds and calculating nature. His people had been founding members of the Council 8,000 years ago. He had served as Supreme Chancellor for 40 years, guiding the Council through trade disputes, minor wars and diplomatic crises. He had always found solutions. He had always maintained order. But this situation felt different. Humanity had not threatened war. They had not made demands. They had simply left. And somehow that felt more dangerous than any military confrontation. Minister Thalen, the Council's economic coordinator, approached with a data tablet. His expression was troubled. Thalen was a Viridian, a species with 4 arms and skin that changed color with emotion. Right now his skin showed patterns of deep concern, dark blue streaks across pale green. Supreme Chancellor, we need to discuss the initial economic reports. The numbers are worse than we anticipated. Vorith took the tablet and read quickly. His confidence began to crack. In just 3 weeks, the impact of humanity's withdrawal was already visible. Human merchant ships had moved 60% of all cargo in Council space. Without them, shipping networks were collapsing. Goods sat in warehouses, unable to reach their destinations. Prices were rising as supply chains broke down. This is temporary disruption, Vorith said, trying to sound confident. We will redistribute shipping contracts to Council companies. The markets will stabilize. Thalen's skin darkened further. Supreme Chancellor, it is not that simple. Human ships were faster and more efficient than ours. Their logistic systems were integrated across the entire council network. Replacing that infrastructure will take years, not weeks. Then we start immediately. Voritha's voice was firm. The council has endured for millennia. We will adapt to this inconvenience. But Voritha's certainty was shaken. He dismissed Thalen and stood alone in the chamber, looking at the empty seat where Ambassador Rodriguez had once sat. The human delegation's place remained vacant, a silent accusation. The first major crisis hit 40 days after humanity's departure. Dr. Kelros, the council's chief medical officer, requested an emergency session. Kelros was a Talarian, a species with exceptional scientific minds. She looked exhausted as she addressed the assembled council members. We are facing a critical shortage of medical supplies. 17 essential pharmaceuticals were manufactured exclusively by human companies. Our stockpiles are depleting rapidly. Within 60 days, hospitals across council space will run out of critical medications. Can we not produce these medications ourselves? Asked Council Member Ixera, a Saurian representative. Dr. Kelros's tentacles writhed in frustration, a sign of stress in her species. We are trying. But human pharmaceutical processes are more advanced than ours. They use synthesis techniques we do not fully understand. Our scientists are working to reverse engineer their methods, but it will take months, possibly years. How many lives are at stake? Vorith asked quietly. Conservatively? 2 million council citizens will die without these medications. That number will grow exponentially as time passes. The chamber fell silent. 2 million deaths. Because humanity had taken their medical technology and left. Vorith authorized emergency research funding and rationing protocols. But he could feel the foundations beginning to shake beneath his feet. The agricultural crisis came next. Administrator Pollux delivered the report 70 days after humanity's departure. 29 council worlds had adopted human farming techniques over the past 3 decades. These methods had doubled or tripled food production, turning marginal worlds into breadbaskets that fed billions. But those techniques required constant adjustment and careful management. Human agricultural experts had provided guidance and support. Now they were gone, and council farmers struggled to maintain the complex systems without help. Crop yields are falling dramatically, Pollux reported. His species communicated through bioluminescent patterns on his skin, and right now those patterns flickered with distress. 17 worlds are already experiencing food shortages. We project full famine conditions within 6 months on at least 9 worlds. Can we send aid from other worlds? Vorith asked. Pollux's patterns dimmed. Our shipping networks are still disrupted. Moving food in sufficient quantities is nearly impossible without human cargo vessels. And even if we could, we are facing simultaneous shortages across multiple sectors. There is not enough surplus to share. Vorith authorized emergency food production initiatives. But he knew they would not be enough. The council had built its prosperity on human innovation, and now that foundation was crumbling. The military disaster came on day 94. Admiral Cross had been a decorated officer for 60 years. He had fought in 7 major conflicts and won them all. Now he stood before the council and delivered news that made Voritha's blood run cold. The Krell have returned. They attacked the Outer Rim colonies with a force of 8,000 vessels. We engaged them with everything we had. 140 council ships against their swarm. Vorith leaned forward. What was the outcome? Admiral Cross's scales darkened with shame. We lost 61 ships. Nearly 50,000 crew members are dead or missing. The Krell overran 2 colony worlds before we drove them back. Estimated civilian casualties are 1.8 million. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Vorith demanded silence. How is this possible? We have defeated the Krell before. Yes, Admiral Cross said bitterly. When we fought alongside humanity. Human tactical innovations and their quantum shield technology gave us overwhelming advantages. Without them, we are vulnerable. The Krell have learned this. They will attack again and soon. Vorith felt the weight of his failures pressing down on him. 2 million medical deaths. 9 worlds facing famine. 2 colonies lost to the Krell. 1.8 million civilians dead. And this was only 3 months into humanity's absence. Supreme Chancellor Admiral Cross continued, I must be blunt. Our military doctrine for the past 30 years has been built around human technology and human tactics. Without them, we are fighting with strategies that are obsolete. We need humanity's help or we will lose the next war. Vorith wanted to argue. Wanted to insist that the council could prevail on its own. But the numbers did not lie. The casualties did not lie. Pride had no place in the face of such devastating truth. Send a diplomatic mission to human space, Vorith ordered. Offer negotiations. Express our willingness to discuss the mining rights issue. The diplomatic mission departed 3 days later. 3 ships carrying Council's finest diplomats and generous trade offers. They never found human space. The navigation data was gone, completely erased from all Council systems. The diplomatic ships wandered for 6 weeks, trying to find routes that no longer existed in their computers. Eventually they gave up and returned, embarrassed and frustrated. Humanity had not destroyed their ships or threatened them. They had simply made themselves impossible to find. It was as if human territory had been deleted from the galaxy itself. The collapse accelerated. By month 6, the economic contraction had reached 35%. Unemployment soared across Council space. Businesses that had relied on human goods and services failed by the thousands. Social unrest broke out on 40 worlds as populations faced shortages of food, medicine, and basic goods. The younger species in the Council, those who had joined in the past 1,000 years, began openly questioning whether they should remain. 3 species formally petitioned to leave the Council and establish independent governments. 2 more were debating similar measures. The Council's authority, absolute for millennia, was fracturing. Then came the plague. It started on the Draxian homeworld, Voritha's own people. A respiratory virus that spread rapidly through the population. Under normal circumstances, it would have been contained quickly. Human medical technology had developed treatments for dozens of similar diseases over the years. But the humans were gone. Their treatments were gone. Their medical expertise was gone. Council doctors worked desperately to create their own cure. But without human pharmaceutical processes, progress was slow. The virus spread to 4 worlds before a crude treatment was finally developed. By then, 3.4 million Draxians had died. Vorith visited the hospitals and saw his own people dying in hallways because there were not enough rooms. He saw children gasping for breath while overwhelmed doctors tried to help. He knew that human medical teams could have stopped this plague in days. Instead, it had taken 4 months and killed millions. The breaking point came on day 211. Vorith sat in his private chambers reviewing casualty reports when his security chief, Commander Zarn, entered without announcing himself. That alone told Vorith something was seriously wrong. Supreme Chancellor, there are riots outside the Council complex. Thousands of protesters from multiple species. They are demanding your resignation. Vorith moved to his window and looked down. The plaza below was filled with an angry crowd. They carried signs written in a dozen languages, but the message was universal. Vorith must go. The Council has failed. Bring back humanity. How did it come to this? Vorith whispered. You betrayed the humans, Commander Zarn said bluntly. You seized their mining colonies while they fought and died defending our worlds. They trusted us and we repaid that trust with theft. Now we are paying the price for that betrayal. I was trying to strengthen the Council, Vorith said weakly. The Outer Rim resources were strategically important. And now we have no resources and no allies, Zarn replied. The humans walked away and our civilization is collapsing without them. The people outside know this. They want leadership that can fix what you broke. Vorith turned from the window. He had been Supreme Chancellor for 40 years. He had guided the Council through countless challenges. But this defeat was complete and undeniable. Summon the Council for an emergency session, he said quietly. I will address them immediately. 2 hours later, Vorith stood before the assembled Council members and made the hardest speech of his life. I have served this Council for 4 decades. I believed that humanity needed us more than we needed them. I was wrong. My pride and my miscalculation have cost millions of lives and brought our civilization to the brink of collapse. Therefore, effective immediately, I resign as Supreme Chancellor. May my successor have the wisdom I lacked. The chamber was silent as Vorith walked out. He had been one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Now he was simply a failed leader who had destroyed what he had tried to protect. The Council selected Ambassador Calera as the new Supreme Chancellor. She was a Viridian diplomat known for her pragmatism and honesty. Her first act was to craft a message to humanity. It took weeks to write. Every word was debated and refined. The Council knew they might only get one chance. The message acknowledged the betrayal. It offered genuine apology. It promised the return of all 15 mining colonies with full compensation. It offered reparations to every affected human colonist. It begged for a chance to rebuild what had been broken. The message was sent on every frequency humanity had ever used. It was transmitted continuously for 90 days. The Council waited for a response. For 3 months there was only silence. Then, finally, a single human ship appeared at the border. It was a small diplomatic courier, unarmed and unimpressive. But its arrival caused celebration across Council space. Humanity had responded. The ship carried a simple message. The Human Congress will send representatives to neutral station Atlas 9 for preliminary discussions. 30 days from now. Supreme Chancellor Calera felt hope stir for the first time in months. She immediately began preparing for the meeting, selecting her finest diplomats and crafting proposals that she hoped would satisfy humanity's demands. But in her heart she knew the truth. Humanity held all the power now. The Council would be negotiating from absolute weakness. Whatever terms humanity offered, the Council would have no choice but to accept. On day 273 of humanity's absence, Calera and her delegation arrived at neutral station Atlas 9. The station floated in the void between Council and human space, a relic from an earlier age when species met who did not yet trust each other. The human delegation arrived exactly on schedule. Calera recognized Commander Sarah Chin, now promoted to Admiral. Beside her stood Prime Minister Jackson Webb and Ambassador Elena Rodriguez. Their expressions were cold and professional. They showed no anger, no emotion at all. Somehow that was more frightening than rage would have been. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Humanity's terms were clear and non-negotiable. All 15 mining colonies would be returned immediately with full sovereignty restored. The Council would pay reparations totaling 50 trillion credits over 10 years. Limited trade would resume, but only on humanity's terms and with human companies maintaining complete independence. There would be no military alliance. Human ships would defend human worlds and nothing else. Council vessels would be prohibited from entering human space without explicit permission for each individual visit. Most importantly, humanity would never rejoin the Council. They would remain independent, sovereign, and separate. Calera listened to the terms and felt the full weight of what the Council had lost. Humanity was not demanding these terms from anger. They were simply stating reality. The Council needed humanity desperately. Humanity did not need the Council at all. "We accept your terms," Calera said quietly. "And we offer our deepest apologies for the betrayal. We violated your trust and we have paid a terrible price for that mistake." Prime Minister Webb's expression did not soften. "Apologies do not bring back the dead, Chancellor. 3 million of your people died from a plague that our doctors could have cured. 2 million more died from lack of medications we once provided freely. Millions face starvation because you cannot maintain the agricultural systems we built for you. Your military loses battles we would have won. This is the cost of betrayal." He paused and looked directly at Calera. "We will trade with you. We will sell you medicines and technology at fair prices. But we will never again fight your wars. We will never again build your prosperity while you take our trust for granted. You wanted to be free of humanity's influence? Congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted. Now you live with the consequences." The meeting ended. Both delegations returned to their respective territories. The agreement was signed and trade slowly resumed. Human merchant ships began appearing in Council space again, but in smaller numbers and only to deliver specific contracted goods. 5 years passed. The Council slowly began to recover. Food production stabilized. Medical research progressed. Economic growth returned, though never to the levels reached when humanity had been fully integrated into Council society. But the balance of power had fundamentally shifted. Humanity continued to thrive independently, making scientific breakthroughs and expanding their territory. They built new colonies and developed new technologies that they no longer shared freely. They became a major galactic power that operated outside Council authority. The Council remained the governing body for hundreds of species. But everyone in the galaxy understood the new reality. Humanity did not need the Council. The Council needed humanity. And that need came with a price that reminded them every day of the trust they had broken. Admiral Sarah Chin stood on the observation deck of humanity's new flagship, the HSS Sovereignty, and looked out at the stars. She thought about the battle where she had saved 8 million alien lives. She thought about how the Council had repaid that sacrifice with betrayal. And she thought about the silence that had followed humanity's departure, a silence that had taught the galaxy an unforgettable lesson. Respect and trust could not be demanded. They could only be earned. And once broken, they could never be fully restored. The Council had learned that lesson in the harshest way possible. Through millions of deaths, economic collapse, and the permanent loss of humanity's friendship. Sarah turned from the window and returned to her duties. Humanity had walked away in complete silence. And in that silence they had shown the galaxy their true strength. Not through weapons or threats, but through the simple act of withdrawing everything they had freely given. The Council would never forget. Neither would humanity. And the galaxy would never be the same.